Well, a veto from Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, who vetoed a bill that would have allowed state police to arrest illegal migrants and make it a misdemeanor to illegally cross the border. Hobbs called the bill harmful. Watch this.
This bill does not secure our border. On the contrary, it will be harmful for communities and businesses in our state and a burden for law enforcement personnel.
Joining me right now is Cochise County, Arizona Sheriff Mark Dannels. Sheriff, thanks very much for being here. Your reaction to what you just heard from Katie Hobbs.
Well, thanks for having me, Maria. Let me say this. I respect certain parts of what the governor's saying, and not that I agree with everything she's saying, but there's parts I agree with. And let me just share that what I'm talking about here is, over the last 2 years in our county, we booked 2,884 people for border-related crimes, up to murder, double-digit murders here. You look at the amount of fentanyl. Last year, we had 111 million fentanyl pills coming through Arizona. 52% of all the fentanyl country came through Arizona. In the 4 border counties, we saw the majority of it. My whole point on this is we're resource maxed out. I don't know what we'd do if we had another bill to deal with this. Where I do agree with the governor is the federal, and she said this in the past, is the federal government has abandoned us down here. The White House, President Biden has abandoned us. 51% of Congress has abandoned us. And states and local law enforcement sheriffs are doing everything they can to secure and keep their communities safe, while the federal government sits back and it fails to even acknowledge it. So where we're frustrated is that. But again, more laws are not going to solve this at the state level. The federal government needs to do their job and follow their oath of office.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Why not just follow the law in place? I mean, these folks are breaking the law by breaching into America, are they not? So why are we even having a discussion on whether or not it's legal for the state to arrest these people? Isn't it legal, given the fact that they just broke the law?
Well, they're federal laws, Maria, and that's the problem. Coming across the border is actually immigration federal law, something we don't have. The state of Arizona is trying to make this a state law.
Yeah.
So, well, my point on this whole thing is, where there's an agreement with our governor, is the fact that we don't have the resources, capacity to even address that. And then I have a jail right now, Maria, that houses, originally built for 162 people. We double bunked them. Think about almost 3,000 people in 2 years have come through my jail for state crimes, let alone immigration trespass crimes that are going to get a slap on the wrist. We have to fix this, and we need to fix it through elections right now, because it's obviously President Biden and Congress have turned their back on this country, my county, my communities throughout the United States. And enough is enough here. But this is where the problem lies, not at a rural county like mine or my 31 other partners on the border, sheriffs. They're doing everything they can to enforce the law.
I know you are. I know you and all of your team are trying, but this comes from the top. And the Biden administration wants an open border, and they give their directive in whatever way they can to the mainstream media as well, who follows through on that. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow and Jen Psaki were mocking Virginia Republican voters yesterday because they listed the border and the immigration issue as their top priority during Super Tuesday coverage. Watch this.
I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the #1 issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very contested area. Build the wall.
So, Sheriff, the Border Patrol Union responded on X saying this: has Jen Psaki or Rachel Maddow invited illegal aliens to come live in their ritzy homes or neighborhoods yet? Millions need a place to stay, because we're guessing their little comedy hour on MSNBC mocking average Americans will probably take on a more serious tone immediately. A Fox News poll, of course, shows voters believe the southern border is an emergency, Sheriff. Your reaction, what do they not, are they just uninformed on the issue?
No, I think they're very informed, Maria. The problem here is they won't acknowledge it because they don't have to acknowledge it. I deal with this every day. I see tragedies every day. I was talking to one of the fellow counties here where they had 5 people running from law enforcement. All 5 will probably die as a result of an incident last night that were being smuggled. We see these tragedies every day. We see our citizens in harm's way while they sit back and laugh hundreds of miles away. They need to get a reality check on what's going on this border and come see it, and then tell these families that are losing loved ones throughout the United States just on the fentanyl poisoning. That's very disappointing to hear that from what we call professional journalism.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the fentanyl poisoning, because that's exactly what it is. It's poisoning. It's not an overdose, so the way so many people try to refer to it. But, you know, we want to know what you're seeing specifically there in Arizona, because I know that the numbers have shifted from Texas into Arizona into San Diego, and now we're learning about these Chinese so-called snakehead gangs. They're working with the Mexican cartels to bring migrants into the country. Senator Roger Marshall broke this news with me, telling me the snakeheads are helping the CCP to transport people and drugs. Listen to this.
The Chinese triad has become an expert at money laundering, and we're going to see this organized crime just grow and grow and grow. They're smuggling people from China to Turkey. There's called snakeheads. Within the triad is something called the snakeheads. Think of them as like coyotes, very purposeful. They hand them over to the cartel, and the cartel brings them on into places like Kansas. They're not just working massage parlors. An explosion of what they call weed farms, marijuana farms, where the Chinese are intimately involved with those and exploiting this labor for labor trafficking.
You know, the fentanyl is a massive issue. John Schell, the chief of the NYPD patrol, was here yesterday, told me, you know, a very small amount can kill you, and they're lacing all drugs with it now. The administration, the Biden administration, meanwhile, reportedly admitted to flying more than 300,000 migrants into America. They claim they did so to reduce the number of crossings at the border. Frankly, Sheriff, how are we going to believe anything he says tonight in the State of the Union if they lied so much about those flights? They actually flew the migrants into the country. Forget about, you know, the dangerous trek that they're all taking, these migrants, to go through the Texas and Arizona border. The administration actually just flew them so that the numbers would look lower. So tell us what you're seeing on the ground in Arizona.
Well, like I talked about, let me talk about the fentanyl, first of all, that we know is touching every community throughout the United States. Last year, 182 million fentanyl pills that were detected and seized. That's just probably represents 5 to 10% of the fentanyl in this country. That's changing lives every day. And this president, this administration, the border czar, Vice President Harris, or the 51% of Congress don't even talk about the war on drugs. It's like it doesn't happening. Marie, we're changing the culture of our country in such a negative way. And the second thing we're doing is we're putting America second. We have to prioritize our country, and it starts with the President of the United States. At what point does he acknowledge the fact that it has not worked, apologize to the country, and put it back on track? I don't see it. I don't see that happening, and that's why elections have to have results.
And when you're watching the border there in Arizona, do you see an impact in the communities around the border? Is it? I mean, because I know the gotaways go to Tucson, right?
Well, we deal with Tucson sector, which is where my county lies, is led the nation in gotaways. I mean, we're looking 15 to 20,000. Put it in perspective, last year at this time, we had between October 1, this is a federal fiscal year stat, 104,000 encounters. This year, 282,000 encounters. We've taken the worst case scenario and made it a new normal here on our southwest border, Maria. And that's okay with President Biden. And that's why the Senate bill had such challenges in it, because we adopted a bad situation and thought that was good. It was not good. We're seeing people down here in my county that are so frustrated because they're vulnerable every day. We have to get a handle on what's going on, and it starts in Washington, D.C.
All right, Sheriff, we'll be watching all of that. Thank you so much to you and your team for your work.